Hi there, well women. I am in week 2 of a calorie cut. So I want to back way up and explain what in the world does that mean. So you know that I'm a Faster Way to Fat Loss client and a Faster Way to Fat Loss coach even. And through that community, I'm in a wonderful community there because we work in groups. And so as a Faster Way to Fat Loss VIP membership client, which means I'm in a month-to-month membership that supports me, I'm surrounded by 30,000 other women, maybe even more at this point, who share ideas. And they shared with me the Biceps After Babies radio podcast. I listened in and I began learning more. And then I decided to sign up for a course called Macros 101. So I'm learning even more and just loving it and loving my macros. And so in that setting, I learned that if you are choosing to, well, actually, no matter what in your life, you are in one of a few phases when it comes to the amount of energy you're taking in. So you could be taking in too little fuel, and it might not be on purpose, but that would be a calorie cut. You might be having noticed you were taking in too little fuel, or known that you were in a calorie cut, or known that you were on a diet, and you're deciding to move yourself out of that. And so you're doing something called reverse dieting. And so you're adding a little more fuel each week slowly so you don't overwhelm your metabolism. And you're doing that until you can come to this other stage, this other place you might be, where many of us are and should be for most of our lives. And that's called maintenance. When you take in enough fuel for your body to do all of its work during the day, your workouts, whatever you do, your breathing, all the things, and you're in a maintenance place. And again, that's where you want to be most of your life. Or you could be in a place where you're eating more than you need. And if you're doing it on purpose and you want to do it to build muscle, you have another goal, you might call that bulking. And some of us, in that space of eating more than we need, think of, oh dear, I'm there gaining weight. So I, over the past 5 months-ish, 4 or 5 months, was in a space where I was maintaining. I was enjoying my body composition. I was building muscle, eating enough to just keep my body where it was. And then I decided, as I'm coming into this Macros 101 course that I'm taking, I would like to go into a calorie deficit again just for 6 weeks and burn some body fat, but keep my muscle. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And I'm in week 2 of that experience. And doesn't it sound cool that I already know when it's going to end? That's my favorite part. I have on purpose taken the learning from Macros 101 that I've gotten and said, yes, I'm going to choose a beginning and end date for this time when I'm going to eat too few calories, when I'm going to be dieting or cutting calories and eating less macros, so that I'm going to take great care of my body. I'll know it's just for a time, and then I'll stop. And I have a plan for what I'll do after that, and it's called reverse dieting, and I'll move back up into maintenance and stay there for a while. And then in the future, I might choose to move into a calorie deficit again to continue to work on burning body fat over time. And I'm going to do that because I know it's a really smart, effective way to take good care of myself. So going into this 6 weeks of taking in fewer macros, said to myself, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it in a way where I really enjoy it. I don't want to be grouchy. I don't want to feel deprived. I don't want to be obsessing over food, any of the old behaviors that I might have associated with being in a calorie deficit, because life's too short. That's not what I'm here for. That's not what a well woman does. And that's really my new thinking is, I'm going to be here being a well woman. I'm going to do what a well woman does and think like a well woman does and have this food freedom and practice my food freedom, even through this calorie cutting phase. And so just that mindset alone has really helped me. And then what I've noticed over week 1 and week 2, another really big support for me has been that I understand and I am able to use intermittent fasting. It is a very big support to me in the sheer fact that it's taught me that I can feel hunger and it will pass, and I don't need to eat to make the hunger go away, and then I can move on with my day and be just fine, even if I choose not to eat at that time. So I'm still using intermittent fasting. I still finish dinner by about 7 p.m. with my family, and then don't break my fast till the next day about 11 o'clock, some days even 12 o'clock. I am some days when I feel well and energized, extending my fasting a little bit longer, so when I do go eat those smaller, fewer amount of calories, I feel as full as I did when I was eating more calories, because I'm eating them in a shorter time frame, and my body literally has this more food in my tummy during that time. Does that make sense? So definitely leaning into intermittent fasting is something that is supporting me during this calorie cutting situation. I'm also really leaning into whole food nutrition. Again, that's a strategy that I learned to use in the Faster Way to Fat Loss. And that's where I also learned to track my macros. So during this calorie cutting time, I am not counting calories. I am still tracking my macros, my carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And I'll tell you how I tweaked them to talk protein and support myself with protein in a moment. But even before that, I am making sure that the food I put in my body now, it's more important than ever that it be whole food with very few added sugars, very little processed food, very little alcohol. I'm still pretty much gluten-free and dairy-free. We do have a little bit of cheese in our family as a kind of like a topping now and again. So I'm leaning into those strategies because they make me feel so good and so full. When we focus on whole food nutrition, you will notice this, especially if you tried the Faster Way 5-Day Slim Down with me, or you've tried the Faster Way to Fat Loss with me. You notice when you eat whole food nutrition, you take in a lot of fiber and it fills you up because it hasn't been processed out of the food. That's really what it boils down to. Processed food has had its fiber taken away, and when the skin's taken off and the flours, the wheat is mashed down into flour, or the brown rice is processed and has the brown taken away, it looks white, that type of thing. That fiber was what slowed down the food as it digested, and it made you feel full too. And so focusing on whole food nutrition has been a great big support to me feeling full, satisfied, balanced, energized, and avoiding cravings or feelings of deprivation over this past week of beginning this calorie cut. So my intermittent fasting has been great support. My whole food nutrition has been a great support. Leaning into my macros has been a great support because I know I can look for my carbs, proteins, and fats and not really think about the calorie number. And it's just, anyone who's tried it will tell you, you just feel like you get to eat more kind of idea, and you're just more empowered. It's because you're giving yourself food freedom. You're telling yourself, I can have anything I want. I'm just going to pay attention to the carbs, proteins, and fats it's bringing me and use portions to make it all work. And that's truly what's happening. On purpose, I did, going into this calorie cutting phase, increase the amount of my calories that are coming from protein. In my maintenance time, was taking in 25% of my calories from protein. For this calorie cutting phase, I increased my protein intake to 30% of my calories so that I'm not going to be low on protein throughout the day, every day. If I were to be too low on protein, especially during a calorie cutting time, if I have less protein coming in, my body's going to use my muscle. And I don't want that to happen. I want to keep my muscles, I've got my nice biceps I've been working on. I want to keep those. And so protein, I like to say it like this. It's just like if you didn't show up one day at work, we'd have to go find someone else to do your job. It has to get done. Protein works the same way. It's not like carbs and fats that get stored and can be used later, or there's more hanging around. Protein's a little different. The body's in the bloodstream looking for the protein all day, like, come do your job, I need you now. And if it doesn't find it that day, that time, right there during the day when it's looking, it's gonna go take from your muscle. So I said, okay, let's bump up that protein. So I went from 1,960 calories at maintenance to 1,660 calories for my cut. I'm just doing 15% less steak calories a day because I felt like that would be a good place for me to be for what my hunger level and just the adjustment that I could tolerate, and it's going really well. I'm really happy. And again, I will try this for 6 weeks and assess my results each week and at the end of the 6 weeks. So let me talk a little bit more about protein, even beyond understanding my macros, my carbs, proteins, and fats, and knowing it made sense to increase my protein intake, essentially. So now that 30% of my calories are coming from protein, I'm getting 40% of my calories from carbohydrates and 30% from fats. So my eating doesn't look that different than it usually does. What I approached at first in my mind was to do 2 meals and a snack, and that's pretty much what is still happening. And I'm noticing that when it comes to protein, that snack is protein focused. So my snacks look a little different. And so I might have like some sliced up chicken breast with a few apple slices. Or I've had some beef jerky sticks on hand that I packed into the pantry. I like the Epic brand and any other clean, no sugar added jerky that doesn't have nitrates and nitrites. What else have I added on for protein? I've done some edamame, roasted or frozen, and I'll just heat those up. Those are baby soybeans. They're pretty high in protein, relatively low in carbs, great dose of fiber, and they have a little bit of healthy fat. I have been using some protein smoothies that I make with either my collagen peptides or my vegan protein powders and my soy milk. What else over the past week has been new or different? I think that's everything. And I'll keep sharing pictures of them on my Instagram and in Facebook so you can get some more protein ideas for yourself. But overall, that was the big shift in my eating pattern during this cut for the past week plus, has been that I'll have my breakfast meal and I'm still having my dinner, but the middle part is more of a small meal or a snack, and it's heavy on protein so that I can get to my protein goal by the end of the day. Because trying to have only 2 meals and a little snack, I would have to eat an extraordinary amount of protein over those 2 meals to make it to my goal, and that's uncomfortable because protein makes you feel really full. So that's been my approach. It's going well. I've been hitting my protein goal, some days even going a little bit over, and I use animal protein and plant protein. I have made a conscious effort to say, okay, how could we have beans with this meal? Because beans add a little protein. How could we have, if it's the day when I'm having more fats, how could I have my almonds, my seeds, my pumpkin seeds, my hemp seeds to add a little more protein here? Because they are mostly healthy fats, but they bring some protein. So can you kind of see how that approach is going, where I'm using animal and plant protein? And just doing a little bit more thinking about where else is protein hanging out besides just in the animal proteins, so I can get to my goal and feel really well and have a nice balance of nutrition in what I'm eating. Because again, that's more important than ever. If I'm just going to be taking in these 1,660 calories, I want them to be all really beneficial food. Now, does that mean I'm leaving out treat day? No way. And in fact, I've even been making a lot of my breakfast meals feel like a treat. If you saw my one that I shared earlier today, it was a great, and yesterday, coconut cream and berries and the almonds in there and some of the grain-free granola from Purely Elizabeth. It looks like a treat bowl. And it is delicious, and I'll have it with my protein lattes where I take my soy milk and put it with my collagen peptides, so I'm getting a huge dose of protein. And it is like I'm going to a fun restaurant, like a juice bar, like the Great Green Farms Juicery I got to go to this past Sunday for their 1-year anniversary, and having a fun bowl and a latte. And it's, whatever the opposite of deprived is, that's how I feel. I'm feeling the food freedom. It's pretty cool. And then dinners have been just pretty much business as usual, I feel, because I have a family, a 6-year-old, a 9-year-old, and my great husband. It would be, for me, I said, okay, wouldn't it be easier if I just leave dinners as they are and make the changes to other parts of my life that's more just me, right? So my breakfast meal is more just me, and my lunches are more just me. Like, I do prep to have food available for my kids to help make their own breakfasts and lunches. They're super independent, and I really love it, and they're making such cool food choices. They're learning so much. So the dinner piece hasn't changed too much. If you get my weekly Sunday or Saturday emails, or you see me post my meal plans here in this Well Woman's community, you'll see I'm still using my same my list of my 42 long page list of go-to meals. Those are still what our dinners are. And what I notice is I'm just gently changing the portion sizes. It's not a significant change. I think more of my change has happened in my middle meal and my breakfast meal. So this has been just super doable because there's just less change happening that way. So that might be a takeaway for you if you are in a calorie cutting phase. If there's some way to let your dinner stay relatively the same, and maybe you just gently adjust your portion sizes, and do more of your tweaking and changes to your breakfast meal or your lunch meal that you aren't consuming with your family, that might make it feel a little less overwhelming to you if you're in a place with your kids' ages that you can do that kind of thing. So that's my report for the week. Let me think. Yeah, I think that's everything, and I don't want to keep you too long. I will report each Tuesday with how it's gone. Let me share this before I go. I am tracking my progress weekly, which is a little bit different than what I've been used to doing in the Faster Way to Fat Loss, where we are more about measuring once a month or measuring every 4 weeks. In this setting, Macros 101, Amber, the creator of the program, is teaching us to measure your body parts that are on our chart for measurements once a week. And even if you want to measure them 2 or 3 times and take your average measurement that can give you a little bit more perspective, because none of this is perfect. So we're measuring body parts and checking that weekly, and then checking the scale weekly. And again, she suggests, why don't you weigh yourself 3 times, maybe even over 3 days, and just take the average measurement. So I've been doing that. And I am noting where I am in my cycle, like the cycle day number, and how it's going, if there's been any changes with my hormones that I use. I use bioidentical hormones. I use bioidentical progesterone and a few supplements right now. Feel free to always ask me questions about that. We have a lot of trainings in the community saved about that. I can point you in the right direction. Or ask me for my girlfriend's guide to hormones. I have lots of resources if you want to talk about that. Whole other subject though. So I'm noting those factors, so where I am in my cycle, because I'm still cycling, and how it's going with my hormones, because they drastically impact your weight on the scale and even your measurements if you're retaining water. So I've been keeping track of all of that, and it's been interesting to see. I didn't expect to see any movement, but I did see my waistline measurement get smaller after just 1 week, and my weight on the scale has gone down. And my bicep measurements have stayed the same, and my calf flexing measurements and my upper thigh measurements stayed the same, and my chest measurements stayed the same. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes over the 6 weeks, and I'll keep reporting how it's going. If, again, any questions you have, if you're curious about all the terms I'm using or anything, this is the perfect place to ask in the comments. And let me do one thing. I'm going to hop on to my app on my phone before I leave you, because interestingly now on my Facebook Lives, I must be doing something wrong. I can't see your comments. There we go. Let me look down. All right, so there we go. Nicole, hello, and Julia, if you're still here. So Julia, yes, mentioned brown rice is less processed, and that's why it still looks brown. White rice has had the brown outer hull that's good fiber scraped off, so white rice is more processed. Let me know if that makes sense. And Julia just finished her coconut bowl for the low carb day. Isn't it just an indulgence? I am just the biggest fan of coconut cream. I love it so much. And yeah, it's healthy fats, 3 grams of fat per tablespoon. And so that's a perfect example of how at 1,960 calories a day, I was using a little more coconut cream in that bowl. I would use 4 or 5 tablespoons. Yesterday I used just 2 because we were out, and today I used 4. So I'm adjusting portions, but still feel so full and satisfied, and energized and not hungry. So it's really good so far. All right, I appreciate you all being here and asking questions. And again, I'll check in next Tuesday at 12:30. I'll create an event in case you want to be reminded to show up and talk more about how these 6 weeks are going to go when I am reducing my calories, which means I'm reducing my macros, and I want to thrive and take great care of myself and not feel deprived, so that maybe you can engage in that behavior too. All right, well, women, I will check in with you all soon.